Hello everybody, welcome back to a new video. Today I want to start talking about texture synthesis, which is a really cool subject. It's a little bit different than things like lead sounds and atmospheres and pads and stuff that I've shown before, in that it's much more, it's a lot more complex. There's a lot more automation to do and elements that you need to keep in mind when doing it. And I'm going to start this off as kind of a series. I want to show you two ways in which you can make some cool textures. And the first one is going to be a little long, so this video might be a little long if you see it. And the second one will be a lot shorter. It's a little bit of a faster trick, but might have a few worse results. And then in the third one, we're going to combine the first two results in a cool way and kind of make the final texture that you would get from this. So stay tuned for those two other episodes, but for now, let's just dive right into it. Alright, so we did some experimentations on stream before. The first one we made, which is the trick I'm going to show you today, looks like this, or sounds like this. That's what we came up with. And then for the second one, we came up with something that sounds like this. Which I can hopefully show you tomorrow if my schedule allows it. I have been uploading daily for a long time now, so I hope I can still keep that up. And then, as you can see, we have the two orange one here, which is this one, and then the two yellow ones here, which is this one, and we combined the two in a cool way, and we made this final sound here. So very nice, very stereo effect sound. It takes a little while to make this, that's why it's a three-part video. So let's get into it and kind of go through the patch a little bit, and then we'll make it from scratch so you can kind of get an idea what's going on. Alright, so this actually starts off as a noise sound, believe it or not. If I just play it like this, you can hear it's just some noise with a volume automation. So that's fairly simple, and there's a little bit of a science you can do there. If we quickly look at the automation itself, you can see we have some long sweeps and we have some rhythmic parts as well here. So yeah, that's kind of what we're going to aim for. And then we do a whole bunch of filtering and compression on it. So this is the first filter. As you can see, we have 3 points, we have a notch here, and we have 2 boosts, which makes it sound like this. Kind of neural bass style EQing here. That goes through a compressor, just a simple OTT, where I'm kind of raising the low end a little bit, because that was a little bit lacking in some spots. You can hear it kind of boost the low end as well as the high end a bit. And then finally we do a little bit more complex filtering. This is actually set to left-right mode, so the left channel is getting EQ'd in a different way than the right channel, which gives a really cool stereo effect, especially when you're doing extreme EQ stuff that you're going to see here. As you can see, there's very extreme curves up here. We're also working with the scale, which kind of accentuates or compresses your EQ curve in a cool way, which you will also see in action. Now, the next one is where the magic happens. I've talked about converting time, or this delay trick before actually, where you take a delay and set the time value to the time it takes for a note to make one cycle. And in this case, it's set to G1. So if we go in here, if I were to play a sound at this note, like a saw wave or a sine wave, each cycle takes 10.2 milliseconds to complete. So this is basically going to turn it into a metallic version of the sound tuned to the key of G1, which sounds like this. And then finally we're doing a little bit of more EQing here. And we also have a serum effects here, which is adding a comb filter, just to kind of give the texture. That's not necessary, this was more like a test, but it kind of worked, so I left it on there. So that's kind of the synthesis part. Then we did some time stretching and some cool stuff in here as well, which I'm also going to show you. And the final sound sounds like this. So it has kind of a neural-based feeling almost, and it sounds really cool. So let's get into making this sound. Now, I hope I can get as close to this exact sound as possible. What I'm going to start off with is just a simple serum, something to kind of generate noise and kind of test different noise samples out. For the last one, we used the ARP circuit version, I believe. And I'm going to create a MIDI clip. We're going to make it a bit shorter so it's a little bit faster. And we're going to get the volume here. And I'm just going to create a point so it will be saved. And I'm going to create a note in the MIDI clip. And now we can start getting our volume down. So the volume for the sound can be made now. We can do some sweeps like this. Oh, let me quickly turn those off. Let's say we want to do a bit of a plucky sound almost, or a little bit of a wobble here. And then we'll do another sweep. And we'll kind of turn it down here. We'll do another nice, almost percussive sound here, and then we'll end it off with another kind of nice sweep there. And then we have this sound here. I'm going to quickly turn this down a little bit so it's a bit more all together the same volume. I'm also going to turn down these lower points a bit more than we had before. So that's what we have now. Now we did the EQing in kind of two stages. We first went into EQ to kind of get the general shape of it and kind of get a cool idea from that, and then we went into the more complex left-right EQ that kind of gave it its stereo properties that it had. So I'm going to start off with a notch filter here, and I'm going to turn it down so it's nice and wide, and I'm just going to set the frequency, and this is kind of a random process. You kind of randomly make it go up and down a little bit. There is some precise things you can do it, but for the sake of this video I'm not really going to go over kind of how you could go into precise things like that. There's a whole science on like neural bases and how they do it, and that kind of always also applies here. And some people are really good at making these filters exactly do what they want and make them sound like they want, but I don't really know how to do that, so I'm not able to explain it as well. What I do know that sounds good is if filters cross each other in cutoff. So we're going to set up a second filter here which is going to boost, as you can see, and we're just going to have it cross every now and again kind of on top, and then it will have some more action down below here, and then it will go back on top, give it some more high end here, and then it goes down, and another go on top like this, and then it will quickly go down and kind of end it with a little bit of a sub boost there. And all these fades, I'm kind of giving them a little bit of a curve to them that kind of helps with the whole sweeping idea. So that's what we get then. We can use another boost to kind of add a little bit more motion to it. I'm going to make this a little bit faster, and this is going to make some crazy boosts and cuts everywhere, as you can see already. Sometimes the two of them are in the same position, which allows them to be boosted really high. But we're going to use the OTT to kind of keep it in check, and yeah, that will fix most of the problems we might have. So that's our starting sound there, and now we're gonna go in and throw a multi-band dynamics here, and we can use this to kind of boost the low end a little bit. I wanted to have a little bit more low end, so we can just drag this band up and it will start expanding the low end, or upwards compressing the low end, therefore giving it a boost. Also gonna turn it down a little bit on the amount, which is the dry wet. And now we can go into the very first thing that makes it really special, the thing that kind of introduces that stereo. So what you want to do is you want to open up the EQ and set it to left, right modes. Now this allows you to both edit the left channel as well as the right channel here. As you can see, you can switch between them. And we're basically going to go in with the same philosophy as for this EQ, but kind of twice. So one time for the left channel, one time for the right channel. So I'm going to set up a notch again, and I'm going to turn this down, and we're going to just automate it almost semi-randomly, and I'll give it some nice points here. It goes up somewhere, it goes down somewhere else, and we'll give this a few nice curves like this. And of course you can go in and do it exactly as you'd like. Again, I kind of want to do this quick, so that's why I'm doing it quick. Also note that also for these bell EQs, I am using a very low cutoff, so it boosts a broad frequency range and not a very specific one. Otherwise you might get some resonant frequencies, which isn't really what we're after here. We kind of want to broadly color the sound in very creative ways. So we're going to set a few more points here. If you don't know how to make these curves, you need to hold Alt on your keyboard, and then it allows you to kind of go into this curve mode when you're close to the line, and you can just drag to make the curve there. So that's the first boost done. We're gonna go through the second one. Just turn up the gain, turn down the Q, and start boosting somewhere. And I will have this do some more stuff in the low end maybe, and we'll have it go up once in a while, and then back down again, and then finally we'll have it go up here again. So now if I play it, you can hear that the left channel is doing a lot more stuff than the right one. So we get that, and now we have to do the same thing for the right channel. And I'm again going to give it a nice broad notch filter here. And I'm going to turn it up like that, turn it down, and this is a little bit more rhythmical. I think it would be maybe nice to have a little bit of a rhythm here, so every one of these is a bar long. Again, you can experiment with this by yourself if you're going to apply these tricks. And we'll have another boost here, which is gonna go up and down like this, and we'll have it go up a little bit further, and then it kind of stays down there like that. And we'll quickly give it some curves, and then for the final boost we'll again set a nice broad boost like this, and just have it up here do its thing, and we'll have it cross over down once and then back up again maybe. Again, this is just an example, so keep that in mind. Normally when you're doing this, you want to listen if your change actually works. As you can see, by coincidence we kind of made it very similar to the other one, which is okay. It kind of helps with the mono compatibility a little bit, even though that's not really going to matter once we add the delay. But for now, let's listen to this. So you can hear we now have a very nice aggressive noisy texture, which is constantly changing in color, and this is where the delay comes in. So I'm going to collapse this, and what we're going to do is we're going to take our delay, and we're going to set left and right to time mode, and I'm just going to type in 10.2, Now, let me quickly open up a web browser here. I think this is, yeah. Oh, if you know the frequency of a note, for example, G0 plays at 49 Hertz, what you can do is you can go in here, you can set 1000 divided by 49, and that will give you a number, and you can divide that either by 2 or multiply it by 2 to get another number, and those are all in the key of G. Now the reason this works is basically we're dividing a second into 1000, so each unit here is going to be a millisecond, and then just by dividing it by the frequency you get how many milliseconds it takes for one cycle of the waveform. So this kind of makes it in key. Now the way this trick kind of works is that your feedback is kind of going to be your release timing in a sense. Your release timing for the effect, the metallic effect. And that's because it's going to repeat the wave very, very fast, and the more feedback it has, the longer it's going to go through. Just like with a normal delay, but in this case, very, very fast. Another cool trick you can use is set it to ping pong. That's why I set it to 10.2 and not 20.4. Because of the way the ping pong works, it will only play half of the delays. One's in the right and one's in the left, and they kind of offset in a way. So if you want to compensate for that, you kind of have to halve the time in milliseconds to compensate for that. So now we should have a similar sounding texture here. Now we're kind of distorting a little bit, and I'm sorry for that, so I'm going to quickly throw on a gain here and set it to -10. And finally we have another EQ and serum effects that we want to add to get really the same feeling. So let's put this final EQ in here, and it's just going to be a very broad notch filter, which again is kind of going to go randomly through this and kind of scope out the last frequencies here. Maybe we want it up a little bit more. So that's that. We can finally add a serum effects. Now this is just used for a comb filter. Oh, wrong plugin. If you have another comb filter which you can use, or you use my audio effects rack in Serum itself, there is a comb filter in here. It's called Tone and Comb. You can also use that, but I like the one in Serum Effects for this one because you can set this to a particular frequency. So let's just get a simple comb filter, and again we're going to tune it to the key of G by setting this to 49 Hertz, and that will ensure that the harmonics of the G key are kind of turned up if you turn up the resonance. And now we should have a sound that sounds like this. Let's turn it up a little bit here. So you can hear that gives it a little bit more high end. What you might want to do to get rid of that is set it to a low here, and then you can dial it in, and this will kind of shape off the high end and kind of have a little bit less resonance on that high end, so it will sound. As you can hear, now we are kind of missing those resonance frequencies in the high end. So this is our bass sound. This is where the synthesis is done. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to make an audio track, and we're going to record this, and we're going to turn it into something even nicer. So let's set this to 32 here so we can record this thing, and we'll quickly do. All right, we'll take this. I'm just going to consolidate this so we can normalize it. If you don't know, if you consolidate something, it will create a new audio file, and then it will set the amount of gain reduction here. So you can just set it to 0. So it will turn it up and normalize it. And now what we're going to do is we're going to set this to texture mode, and we're going to dial in a very low grain size and 0 flux. And the flux is kind of the crossfade between the grains. and this is the size, so it's going to be a very small audio portion which is going to be used for the resampling. And what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of mess it up with warping, maybe something like this, and we'll have this go forward a little bit and this go backwards a little bit more, and maybe we want to turn this forwards as well. This is just kind of there to make sure that the warping mode actually has something to warp and isn't warping the original clip, so that it actually has to do something. Now what we can do finally to make this sound really work is go into the grain size. Now I've explained this principle before on a very old tutorial. I believe it was the percussions one, the very first or like the third tutorial I ever did. Basically how this works is that you have percentages here, and the maximum 100% is going to be this value, and 0% is going to be the lowest value that it can go, which is 2. So let's set this back to around 12 there, and we're just going to dial in a nice little tone, and we're going to sustain some of these tones throughout here and kind of switch between different percentages, kind of like a sample and hold feature almost. And then we're going to finally turn it down here, and this will kind of give it its own unique tone, which sounds really cool. So that's the first part here. That's how I go about designing textures from scratch from noise. In the second part, I'm going to show you how you can use a sample. In particularly, we're going to use lo-fi vocal samples, stuff from like old movies, that kind of thing works really well. And in the third episode, again, we're going to combine all of them. If you like this video, if you like these complex sound design things, one, feel free to subscribe because there's going to be more coming, and two, you might be interested in my stream where I kind of do all these more crazy things with the viewers. And yeah, so if you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.